Election day has come and election day is gone, and we still don't have a clear result. Today we're going to give you two different perspectives on how to both approach and digest the news as the election continues to roll on. Welcome to the Wright Brothers. Howdy y'all, welcome back to the Wright Brothers. In this episode, talking about the raucous 2020 election as it continues to roll on even after election day has come and gone. As many of y'all know, we still don't have a clear result as of now. We know that there's litigation going on and there's lots of questions that people are asking. What's most important to do though is realize there are going to be different perspectives on this, even on similar sides of the aisle. But today, Trey and I are going to give you our own unique takes on what has transpired thus far. So as many of you know, obviously election night came and went, and we did not get a clear result as to who the winner of the contest actually was. And in the days and weeks that are going to follow, we're going to see very interesting things play out. In my perspective, I really think that this is just the beginning. Between now and election day, what people don't realize is that there are multiple different processes that have to take place before a president is either inaugurated once again or before his successor is inaugurated. And what we're seeing right now is probably the biggest and most abject failure I think we've ever seen on this scale from sea to shining sea. And make no mistake, the rest of the world is looking at us, and I think what they're seeing right now is the fact that we still can't seem to get it right as it's related to this issue. We all know that 2020 has been fraught with all sorts of controversy and turmoil, but this was supposed to be a very seminal moment in American history. We were able to go to the polls and figure out who our leader would continue to be or who our next leader would be. As you know, on this channel, Trey and I are both ardent supporters of President Trump, not because of the man himself, but because of the policies that he supports and because of our own unique ideologies that have been formed by years of experience. The way I look at it is we're in a war right now, a very clear war, and it is a war between good and evil. It is important to make that distinction, but it means that we're in for a veritable floor fight. And what I mean by that is this is not going to be something that's going to be decided overnight. And that's very difficult for people to actually come to terms with because our culture has become so obsessed with knowing the results of everything immediately that sometimes we forget that things are going to take time. And it's important to actually slow down and take a deep breath. There's going to be news coming out in the coming days. We're already seeing it now, talking about what the Biden administration is planning on doing, talking about why isn't Trump doing this? Why isn't Trump doing that? The thing that the media is very good at is trying to get you to look at things through their lens. We know that the media is biased at this point. No person could argue anything to the contrary. We know the media had a clear dog in this fight. And we're seeing them play defense now for that dog while the dust has not even yet settled. There are still votes being counted as of this recording. And there is a lot of questions that are being raised as to the numbers that we're seeing come out of some of these states and the amount of time that's elapsed between election day and where we are at currently. What I want to encourage you to do today is to really take heart because the war is going on for your mind. Jim Morrison famously said, whoever controls the media controls the mind. And it's important to remember that because right now people are trying to play mind games, specifically with the mainstream media. They're doing everything they can to make you feel like all is lost and the end is near, the time has come. And we all know that if there's one thing you can count on President Trump about, is that he is not going to concede a fight that he knows he has a chance to win. He is a negotiator by default, and that is the way he has lived his life up till this point. So what we're going to see is a lot of litigation going on in the days and weeks that follow. We're going to see more evidence and information come to light that's being uncovered by the likes of James O'Keefe, Project Veritas, and even just everyday citizens who've chosen to actually document what's going on and raise the alarm bell, essentially, because we realize that if we don't get this call right, and if we are not able to have a election process that people can have some faith in, we're in for some very dark times. What I want to do is maintain calm right now. What I want to encourage you to do is to continue to seek out answers and not be afraid to ask those questions that might have difficult answers, but be willing to go down that path because there's so much emotion going into this process. It's very easy to fall for anything. So make sure you're vetting your sources effectively. But do not lose heart because the fight is not over. There's more to be seen, and we will see that unfold in the days and weeks to come. But now I'm going to turn the floor over to my brother to give his take on the status quo as it stands today.
Yes, and as always, well said, Damani. And I'm actually going to piggyback on something that you ended with, and that is to take heart. And I'm actually going to apply that to both sides of the aisle. There was coming into this election, both sides of the aisle were fraught with tension and apprehension, and I think that was something that was common, whether you were a Democrat or a Republican, a liberal or a conservative coming into this election. And I think that was something that kind of raised the stakes to an almost a fever pitch coming into the 2020 election. And the fact that we did not get that resolution on election night only wound everyone so much tighter. So what everyone needs to do is take a step back, take a breath, and relax. And especially if you're on the right side of the equation, I want you to actually consider the worst case scenario. Consider whether Trump actually loses the election. What's the worst thing that can happen is that he loses the election. I actually sat there on election night and took stock about that. The first two elections that I voted in, my preferred candidate lost. That was a tough pill to swallow. The first two elections that I ever voted in, my preferred candidate lost. I was not happy about that, but guess what? The sun came up the next day, life went on, and I continued to vote my conscience, and then went on to go to work, go to school, and continue to try to make the world, my corner of the world, a better place. I think in a lot of ways, Republicans, conservatives are in a similar position in 2020. Should the election results, should the projected election results stand as it seems they may, pending no smoking guns being found, I think that we find ourselves in a similar position to the way many of our friends on the left maybe found themselves at the end of the 2016 election cycle. And that is to say, maybe having come into the election with a bit of a wrong mindset. And I'm going to couch it like this. Coming into 2020, or coming down the stretch in 2020, we may have heard some people get a little bit overconfident. Not everyone, but there was some talk of, we're going to have a red wave. We're going to have a red wave sweeping across the nation. And I was cautious, very cautious, a couple of times on this very show, saying President Trump ran a very, very thin gauntlet to win in 2016, and he was going to have to reprise that gauntlet to do so again in 2020. It wasn't an impossible gauntlet to run, but it was a very thin margin of error that he had, that he was going to have to do so again, and he was going to have to do so against a side that was not going to assume that victory was in the bag. In 2016, Democrats did not foresee that Hillary Clinton was going to be beaten. We all saw the polls. We all remember that she was given very little chance of losing to Donald Trump. This time around, they knew for beyond a shadow of a doubt that defeat was an option. Defeat was on the table. So I'm reminded of in some way, shape, or form of the old parable of the scorpion and the frog. Most of us know the tale, but for those of us who don't, there's an old tale of a frog. Or a scorpion asking a frog for a lift across a river, and the frog, he knows what the scorpion's all about. He knows the scorpion can sting him, and the frog will die, and they'll drown. And the frog is like, "You're not going to sting me, right? And if you sting me, we're both going to drown going across this river." And the scorpion's like, "No, I'm not going to sting you. If I sting you, we're both drowned. And why would I sting you and kill myself going across the river?" So frog is like, "You know what? You're right. Self-preservation, all that jazz." So gives him a lift. And guess what happens in the middle of the river? The scorpion stings them, and they're both drowned. So the frog's like, as they're going down, the frog's like, why'd you sting me? You know what's going to happen. And the scorpion essentially gives an answer. Well, it's in my nature to sting people. This is what I do. And so that's kind of the scenario that I saw playing out when it comes to the Democrats. And for those of us who believe in kind of a sinister nature, if we really believe that election fraud was in their nature to cheat, you had to have seen this coming if you were on the GOP side. And I think maybe a little bit of arrogance on the side of the GOP, maybe thinking that there was a little bit of a red wave coming. Who knows? But on the same time, if you suspect that your opponent is not completely above foul play, you have to have a little bit of a stratagem in place to at least catch them in the act. Maybe they did have such a stratagem in place, maybe they didn't, who knows? But at this point, the clock is really ticking to catch that smoking gun, because right now, as of this recording, all we have is speculation. There has to be some hard evidence, and right now time is starting to run out. We already see the office of the president-elect, which, full disclosure, that's not really a real thing. It's kind of a power move on the part of Joe Biden. It was started by former President Barack Obama as kind of a, let's get this train moving and get the media on my side, thinking that I've won. But in the minds of many, they're already starting to embrace him as the victor. So if there is any evidence, any smoking guns on the side of the Trump administration, it behooves them to get that ball rolling right now to kind of get momentum back on their side. So if there is something that is going to swing this momentum back, it needs to come out sooner rather than later. But even if there is not, at some point that needs to be accepted and then applied to future elections, because like Damani said, we are headed for some very dark times if in back-to-back presidential elections, 2016 for the Democrats, 2024 for the Republicans, we have lost all faith in the tabulation process for our federal elections. And you cannot run a free, fair democracy, representative republic, however you wish to couch it, when nobody on either side of the aisle has complete confidence in the accrual of votes in our democracy. It simply does not work. No one has confidence that when election night rolls around, that the results are going to be tabulated in a fair manner, and that we are going to have a leader of the free world that was elected in a completely above board manner. So regardless of however this shakes out, whether President Trump is vindicated in his claims of election fraud, or Joe Biden does carry the day as projected to be the 46th president of the United States, regardless of that, we do need to hammer out what the game plan is going forward, because it is vitally important that going into not just 2024, but 2022, going into the midterm elections, that we have a better game plan for federal elections, because it is critical for our republic up and down the line that we do better, because like Damani said, the world is watching us, and at this point, we have not acquitted ourselves well going into an election that everyone knew was going to come down to the razor's edge. And I believe that we can and will do better, and it starts right here and now with the rest of us, and we here at the Wright Brothers will cover it every step of the way.
Absolutely, absolutely. So now is the time we want to hear from you. We know everyone is struggling, going through their own personal tumult with all of this, and we want to hear from you and connect with y'all. We love engaging with y'all. Please feel free to check out our Facebook page, the Wright Brothers IPID, or check us out on other social media platforms as well. We always keep it 100 with all of y'all, and we're going to get through this together. But remember to stay calm, take a deep breath, but also realize that the clock is still ticking. There is still time on the clock. And it's important that we now more than ever keep our eyes open for what is to come. So we want to thank those of you who tuned into this video. If you like this video, please smash that like button. Spread the word. Identity politics is dead. We want to especially thank those of you who've taken it upon yourselves to support us financially through Patreon. We couldn't do this without your support, and we love you and thank you from the bottom of our hearts. But that's it for this episode. Stay encouraged, be engaged, watch the process, keep your eyes open, and just know that the best is yet to come. But we appreciate you tuning in, and we will see you in the next one.
The first revolution is when you change your mind about how you look at things and see that there might be another way to look at it that you have not been shown. The revolution will not be televised, and be no rerun, brothers and sisters. The revolution will be live.